All right, what's going on, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream debate recap. I'm with Dr. Jason Nichols tonight. You may have seen him very frequently correcting Tucker Carlson on Tucker Carlson tonight. What's going on, Jason? How you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. Just enjoyed that debate. It was an interesting, discussion about a whole lot of different subjects, healthcare, China. You and I were just discussing, foreign policy. So I thought it was an interesting debate, immigration.
Mhm.
I don't know. Who did you think stylistically came away winning that debate?
Stylistically, I would say that's between. You know what was weird? Biden did better than I expected he would.
Right.
He didn't come off like the fragile old man that you feel bad for, like he did in the last debate. He was, and I think he was very forceful on purpose. And that exchange with him and Julian Castro thought that he got Biden, but in actuality, he did not. He tried to insult Biden for what he quote unquote didn't remember. And what Biden said and what he said Biden said was they had to opt in. And he was like, oh, you said you didn't have to wait to opt in. And then Julian Castro then said, oh, well, you said you need to buy in. Yeah. And I'm like,
totally different. Yeah.
Yeah, like a totally different thing.
And I hear people on the major networks, this is why you should watch me or watch you. And even though I'm going to be on the major network tomorrow, but the major networks, they're like, he corrected Biden. Biden said that, but opt-in and buy-in are two very different things. That's a big distinction. Big distinction there. Even though I probably agree more with Julian in terms of, healthcare, you still can't distort what someone else was saying.
Yeah, there's no need to.
Right. There's no need for that. Yeah, it's bad enough. Look, I think what they did correctly tonight was not go after Barack Obama. I thought that was a big mistake.
I think they didn't go after, but I think they kind of put too much stock into Barack Obama, because if you're at a HBCU, especially one of these woke HBCUs, you're talking about a generation where Essence just came out with a new poll that said Black women specifically 18 to 34 want Bernie. So like, this is a different generation of young Black people, and they're very privy to what Obama didn't do for young Black people. And so I think that what they did tonight, as far as kind of celebrating his name, would have been better served last debate, rather than at a HBCU where not everybody is that excited about Obama like they used to be. And you even heard some of the people, one of the only people who didn't, tout Obama's legacy was Bernie. And you heard the young Black women talking about how much they enjoyed his performance during the debate when they first asked at that first commercial break. So go ahead.
No, but at the same time, again, you're speaking to America. You're not just speaking to the audience that's present and is live. And, yes, the 18 to 34, and that is an Essence poll. I saw that poll as well. I would argue how many Black women 18 to 34 or 35 are still reading Essence. But at the same time,
they may not be reading it, but they vote, they got a call and they voted in it, so.
Perhaps, and how big was the poll? Where was it taking place? All of those play into that. But at the same time, I don't doubt that Bernie has some popularity and that Biden is not popular with that demographic. But I think when you're looking at the people who vote, who are usually older, the 35 and over crew, those people still are sticking with Biden. And they
older than 50, not really to 35. Closer to the 50 range, I would say.
Okay, closer to the 50. We're not talking 36 necessarily, but people who are 50, 55, 60, our parents' age, they're the people who are really sticking with Biden. And ACA, we would not be having a conversation in this country about Medicare for all were it not for ACA. So you can disagree with ACA as far as policy, but it was the gateway in order to have a conversation about true universal health care in this country.
So I would say that the problem with that is our biggest obstacle to Medicare for all is now ACA, because we allowed the lobbyists did what lobbyists do. And to be 100% honest, Barack did not stand up enough to the lobbyists and to the Republicans. He was trying so hard to appease everybody. And that's a whole different discussion we can go in at a different time. That now, when we get into office, or whoever wins the election, right? Say if it's not Bernie for whatever reason, how are you? They're already leaning and celebrating the ACA like millions of people have not been harmed by that policy, and millions more who can afford it are going broke paying for it, and they're not getting the adequate care they need. And I think that if the Democrats want to be smart about how they invoke Obama's name, they shouldn't use policies or shouldn't talk about his name when we're talking about policies that like are negatively affecting people's lives right now. Because if anything, it does damage to their legacy. And like I said, you heard the young women, the reason she liked Bernie was because of the healthcare conversation. And I'm sure given that, she's less likely to be like, okay, Obama did a great job with ACA. Because like, if we're being honest, his idea was great, but that's what scares the hell out of me about what Kamala's selling. Kamala's literally selling repackaged ACA. It's literally
Kamala, honestly, coming out of this debate, even though she seemed prepared, sometimes Kamala strikes me as just unprepared. But yeah. In this particular,
she tried to be better this time.
She seemed prepared. I think it's interesting that she and Klobuchar, that in this debate you had the moderator lay out their prosecutorial record, and they were like, "That's not my record."
Who do you think handled that better?
Like so of the two of them, I think Kamala handled it better than Klobuchar did. Klobuchar just started naming random Black people. You know what I mean? Like, we solved this one's case, we solved that one's case. None of it having to do with a police shooting and the things that she was being talked to about, so she tried to basically shift the conversation and say, I helped this Black person, so hey.
I don't know, man. I feel like Klobuchar handled it better because she took what happened when the thing that even sparked this conversation, right, is shout out to Tulsi Gabbard, who was not able to be in the debate today, but that's what sparked that entire conversation, was her exposing Kamala. And then they asked Kamala, what did you do? And she says, well, look, here's why I got into the, like, no, that's not what we asked you. But that's what she always does, because if you answer the question, she was absolutely guilty of everything Tulsi said she did.
Absolutely.
Whereas Klobuchar was smart. She said, no, that's not my record. Immediately nipped it in the bud, didn't get any pushback, didn't see anything talking about it on Twitter, killed that conversation immediately, and then pivoted to what she has done for the Black community. And, whether or not she's done it, we have to research and figure out if it's true or not.
It is her record, though.
But she did a better job handling it. That's it's about what America is going to perceive it as.
Yeah, go ahead. My bad. We're gonna have to disagree here, because I really think that what Kamala did is a simple pivot. You know what I mean? She knows it's an uncomfortable conversation, so she says, there have been distortions of my record, but here's what I.
But she didn't address the distortions, though, and that was the whole problem.
But I don't think that stuck in people's minds. I think the fact that
she went viral.
I think she was exposed by Tulsi, and prior to that, by the New York Times and many other organizations who have said she is not a progressive prosecutor. She was a throw you in jail, close the door, swallow the key type of prosecutor, like many prosecutors are. Now, the truth is that she was following the trends, just as Biden has done throughout his career, just as many others. She was following the political trends, and she didn't have the foresight to see what she was doing was not the correct course. And even with some of the things that have happened, like, I'm from as you guys can see, if anybody's watching, I'm a little older than Niko. So I grew up in the crack era. I remember the crack era. You know what I mean? So a lot of people were calling for some of those regressive policies that led to mass incarceration or led to more mass incarceration, because those communities, you know, the community that I came up in partially got hit really hard, and it felt like it was overnight.
Basically was. That's a different conversation.
No one talks about the historical context because people don't want to hear that, you know? The other thing that I think about criminal justice is a lot of times it seems to overshadow so many other issues that affect African-American communities right now that we, in other conversations that we need to be having, including healthcare, including, employment discrimination, automation, all the things that we needed to talk about. People just say, Black people, criminal justice, because you're all in prison. And it's like,
well, the thing is, which I 100% agree, but like if we in jail, we can't even do any of that. You know what I'm saying?
No,
like,
I agree.
That's the problem. The disenfranchised are the first ones targeted, but those are the ones we are simultaneously trying to uplift. But like, if Kamala gets to them first, we may not get a chance to talk about, well, they're going to have healthcare in jail, I guess. So that's good. But like, other than that, like, we don't get to talk about the cost of college or, them getting a job or redlining, disproportionate, loan sharking and things like that. Like we gotta address a lot of our core issues. And I think that like and I agree with you. I feel like sometimes we kind of get put in that criminal justice box. Like we're the only, like that's the only thing that matters to us, but we don't ever really expound upon what do we do after we solve that problem. And I think that is a conversation that needs to be had more often. So who do you think won the healthcare conversation? That was like a 45-minute long convo.
So that was a tough one for me to gauge. I'll tell you who didn't win. I don't believe that Elizabeth Warren won that. And I think she was positioned to win it. And
they were trying.
Yeah, she just didn't pull it out. I think I'm trying to go live at the same time here so people can see it from my stuff. I don't think she won that. I think Biden did a decent job. You know what I mean?
He was way more prepared for that conversation than I expected him to be.
Yeah. I mean, well, if he wasn't prepared at this point, it's like, come on, bro. You know what I mean?
Didn't expect it. He should have been prepared. He'd been being vetted to run for office for the last 3 years. He should have been prepared 3 years ago.
Right.
But,
he totally should have been prepared for that conversation. And I think he did a decent job.
I mean, his plan's shit, but like what he did a good job of initially was, because obviously Bernie was pop, 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 like killing it. Bernie. And then Biden kind of came in for a second and hit him with that, but you're taking people's choice away for who they want to see. And instead of Bernie, which I wish he would have emphasized this more. He's like, we're not taking anybody's choice away with that Medicare for all bill. Amy, wrong. She mischaracterized his bill and he didn't really check her on it enough, where they're like, oh, we're going to take away choice of, like, Bernie's Medicare bill is a whole page dedicated to choice of doctor anywhere in the country. And that's that whenever people say, I don't want to lose my private health insurance, that's usually what they're referring to in Bernie's bill. Keep that together. And I don't think that he hit that hard enough. He did a better job. He did an okay job with the pricing, but I think that Joe Biden kind of caught him off guard a little bit. I think he caught him off guard.
I think Biden did as good a job as you can expect when you're looking at that kind of situation. His plan isn't as good. He doesn't know exactly what he means by expanding.
I don't know what the fuck his plan is, to be honest with you. Oh no.
Yeah.
I don't think he knows what it is.
He says it's expanding, the ACA, but what does that even mean? We don't really know.
Yeah, because it sounds like they're going to keep it in the hands of Medicaid, and if that's the case, you're putting it in the hands of the same states and the same legislators and the same Republicans who didn't like Obama and literally made Medicaid shit so that ACA wouldn't be good.
Right, so. And I think Bernie is the only one who's on the level about any of that kind of stuff. Who says Elizabeth Warren? They asked her, "Are you going to raise taxes?" And she goes,
what did she say? It was like a word salad, but I don't remember clearly.
Yeah, she just was like, people in America are thinking about, she went into her whole thing, about cost and all of that.
Oh shit! That's
and
exactly
I think
what
she's saying is correct. People in America are concerned with cost and all that.
I remember what she said. She was like, okay, the rich are going to pay more and the middle class are going to pay less. And that's what we want. It's like, bruh, I need you to give you a little bit more detail than that.
Yeah.
Like, Bernie, you can tell it's not her bill. And I'll guarantee, as much as she's been trying to take credit for Bernie's bill, something in me feels like she has literally never read that legislation one fucking time.
Because I think she's read it. I think she, again,
Bernie. But when they said there's no private insurance and they went to her, which is weird because they went to her instead of Bernie for his own legislation, and she didn't know it doesn't get rid of private insurance. It actually allows you to keep private supplemental insurance. It just guarantees you the basic coverage listed in that bill, but it still allows. So if you want additional coverage, like maybe more doctor's visits per month for whatever reason, more emergency coverage, ophthalmology care, right, chiropractic, anything like that some insurance companies or some supplemental companies provide for right now, you can add that on and you still have the same amount of coverage, and you still get to keep your choice of doctor or a primary care provider. Right. And Warren didn't know that, but she's the policy wonk.
I think she knew that. I mean, I knew that, and you knew that, so she had to know that. But the thing is,
I think you gave her too much credit.
But I think Bernie is the one, like I said, he's the one being honest and on the level, saying, yes, your taxes are going to go up, but your healthcare costs are going to go down, and they're going to go down so significantly because it's basically going to be zero, because you're going to pay less than $200 for your healthcare. If you have, think about it, you have HIV, you're looking at, you want that Magic Johnson treatment, you're looking at $3,000 to $5,000 a month. You know what I mean?
And that's like optimistically, really.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a whole lot of money that you can't afford. And so a lot of people, rich people live, poor people die.
Yeah, and we can't. I think everybody wouldn't mind paying an extra $15, $20 a month to guarantee that they're not going to have to rely on whether or not their paycheck arrived that day for them to get health care.
Right. And I think that's what Bernie is saying, but Bernie is being honest about it. Elizabeth Warren doesn't want to say she's going to raise middle-class taxes. She's scared to say that. And my thing is, be honest with the American people. Don't give us, like you said, a word salad. Give us exactly what is going on. Tell us exactly what you're going to do.
And you know what she would be smart to say? Well, currently under the ACA, you are paying a tax, you're just not calling it that.
Right.
So we're telling you, you're going to be, because you're going to have to pay that tax regardless, no matter. Because even if you don't get private health, or excuse me, if you don't have any, like if they don't force you to pay for any insurance, there's no mandate, there's no ACA, there's no nothing. You're still going to have private health insurance. Yes or no? Yes. You're still going to have to pay monthly for that. Yes. So they're saying like, so if you don't want that, you can still get the same good or great coverage and pay an extra $20 a month on your taxes, $30 a month on your taxes. Okay. Like you're going to pay for it anyway. So what Bernie, you're right. I 100% agree. And it's just, like I said, I don't know if Warren, every time that Warren goes into anecdote mode, I'm like, she has no idea what the hell she's talking about. Or she's too fearful of the reaction from the quote unquote centrist or the right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think that could be the case. And
why else would she do it?
That's one area where I will say that, you miss Tulsi because she doesn't do the anecdote thing. And even Andrew Yang.
God.
Andrew Yang doesn't do it too often, except for when he talked about his buddy.
He jokes, yeah. But like I'm Asian, I know a lot of doctors, bro. I ain't gonna lie. Yeah. I busted out laughing when he said that shit.
No, that was hilarious.
His timing is always really good. I'm not gonna lie.
his charisma, he's a charismatic dude. I think UBI and the way that he's putting it forth is not good. I think he's crunched the numbers, and I think he's right that he can, that is possible. I just don't think that, and I understand the concept of I'm not going to do what Bernie's doing, which is I'm going to tell you how we're going to spend your money. I'm going to give you the money and allow you to spend it the way you want to spend it. I understand that concept, but if he does UBI through debt, that's a big mistake. That's a horrible
through the
mistake.
VA, through the value added tax.
Right. So the only way,
That's how a lot of people feel.
There are two ways to do it. There are two ways to do it with UBI. You can either tax the wealthy, with a wealth tax, kind of like what Elizabeth Warren talks about, or you can basically just do it through debt. You know what I mean? Like basically just mount up a whole lot of debt. Now that is dangerous. It's doable, but it's dangerous because, then you deal with inflation and all the things that come from debt. And I've heard that Yang is thinking about doing it the latter way, which I think is
through value added tax. So basically, it would be you tax the goods at every point of conception or every point of is a point of interaction or something like that. Basically, like, so whenever when the manufacturer transfers the good, there's a tax. Whenever they start to they get their raw materials in, there's a tax on when you buy it. When they pay their workers, there's a tax that they have to pay for their workers. And then even at the point of sale, there's a tax. And so, the argument for value added tax is that the corporations can no longer escape it through complex taxes and subsidies and things like that. However, is what you just said. You're basically basing it off of debt. You're putting the onus, it's like I'm getting $1,000 a month, but you're putting the onus of the taxes back onto me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So if I'm making large purchases that month for whatever reason, aren't you basically just taking it away?
Right.
Like if I pay $500 for groceries and the value added tax is 5%, I don't know. It's just because it's not just going to be for that. Everything you buy will have a value added tax. So I agree. That's my biggest complaint. I will say to his credit, it didn't used to stack on Social Security. It does now. He listened to his supporters, and his supporters moved him left on that. However, I do not agree with him giving it to rich people. I do believe that we should go ahead, put in the work now to make sure that it's proportionate to your city, to your it doesn't have to be income, just your city. And then but there doesn't be an income ceiling. Like if you're making $250,000, $300,000 a year, there's no reason why you are taking an extra $12,000 a year that could go to a small family or a single mother home or whatever. Right. So I want to transition to the people who are off of the debate stage tonight.
Okay.
What do you believe that Marianne Williamson and Tulsi could have added tonight that was sorely lacking? I could think of a lot of things, but I want to know what your opinion is.
Well, again, so first of all, shout out to the few people who are watching you on my laptop and watching me here. I want to give a shout out on Facebook. I know a lot of them, this probably isn't the best setup. Peace, shout out to Stephanie Ritchie, Ernesto, Karen. But I also, I think Tulsi could have added, obviously, some more focus on foreign policy. Everyone was talking basically to Pete Buttigieg because he was the one military veteran on the stage. And I think she would have added a little bit more of that kind of a background, in terms of talking about being commander in chief on day one. She's somebody who obviously from that perspective has been in so many different positions. You've pointed it out several times on your different platforms that she has been, gone from, soldier, and congresswoman and on the Foreign Affairs Committee and all the things that she does that give her a unique perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she would have added that. Like I said, I think, in terms of domestic policy and, I have to be, like I said, on the level. Tulsi is somebody that you and I both like personally. You know what I mean? We know her personally. We like her personally. We like many of her policies. You like them all. There's a few,
98% of them. 98%.
I would tweak in there, but I like a lot of them.
I would like more Black agenda stuff, like
totally
outside of criminal justice. I like I like how she's steadfast on reparations. Though she was on Dave Rubin. She knocked that damn question out the park. I was so proud of her. She
She said something on Dave Rubin though that I was like, you know,
was the identity politics thing, because I agree with her.
Yes, the identity politics thing. Number one, as an academic, I think people use the word identity politics incorrectly, and
that's also true.
You know what I mean?
It's true. It got weaponized and it got co-opted, and that's what happens.
Yeah, you know, the what's the short guy that wears the yarmulke? What's his name?
The short guy that wears the what?
He wears a yarmulke. He's
Ben Shapiro.
Dave Shapiro. I mean, Ben Shapiro.
Yeah,
Ben Shapiro.
Is he that short?
Shapiro. He's somebody who just literally took, you know, like read maybe a half an article and said, this is what the left calls identity politics. And, you know, and then totally,
yeah, sounds about right.
You know, totally ruined the term or misinterpreted it. And now the sad part is when you have people on the left like Tulsi who actually, you know, use it in the way that he said to use it rather than in the way that it actually means, it gets frustrating for people like me. But at the same time, I think she would have added, you know, great stuff on foreign policy. And I think she would have held Kamala's feet to the fire.
Oh yeah, she wasn't gonna let her get away with that.
You know, which I think would have been good. I would have liked to have seen her hold.
It would have been funny.
Kamala's feet to
just
the
like
fire
looking at Tulsi look over from the corner like this, like, you didn't answer that question.
Right. And then, you know,
did you not withhold evidence?
So what did you think? What did you think of and Marianne Williamson? I think would have added. You know, I think Marianne Williamson wants to have some important conversations in this country. They're just not necessarily policy related or anything, but I think she's an important voice. And I hope, you know, I was saying this the other day. I wish we could take Dr. Phil and put him in the garbage disposal and put Marianne Williamson in his place, because she would actually want to help people. You know what I mean? She should be on TV every day. She should have a television show.
Watching her evolution throughout the entire primary process has been interesting, because at first she pissed me off with a few things that she had said very early on, and she evolved. And I remember when she got interviewed by Jenga TYT after the last debate, she said, you know, I didn't think I agreed with Bernie on Medicare for all, but then I looked at all the people I agreed with, she agreed with on the stage. She was like, I think I'm on the wrong side of this discussion. And I was like, and to see her think through it.
Respect that.
Yeah, you got to respect that and to be so open about it. And she's like that with basically everything. And I don't know if you saw the clip that got where her mic was still hot. Did you see that?
I didn't.
It went viral on Twitter today. She was about to be doing an interview. Her mic was still hot. She was like, what does it say when the right treats me better than the left has? The left has treated me like nasty, referring to the establishment, CNN, MSNBC, and all of them. And she was like, I've gotten treated better at Fox News than I've gotten treated at CNN for being, you know, anti-establishment.
The right actually, you know, I've talked to some of the right-wing people, even the people that don't like me, like Sebastian, and like, you know, I won't say they don't like me, but, you know, I've talked to Sebastian.
They're on opposite sides of the spectrum.
Right. You know, and, you know, Eric Bolling and all those guys. And I haven't talked to Sebastian about this, but Eric Bolling was clear that he kind of likes Marianne Williamson. And so
I think it's because she's just not combative, man. I'm telling you,
she's genuine. I think she really wants to help.
Something. I feel like you shouldn't ever codify a candidate exclusively by the supporters they have. But I do believe that it shouldn't be ignored when every single one of your supporters are super nice. Yeah. Like I've never seen a negative word from any, and
Tulsi
I'm on Twitter.
Supporters annoyed the hell out of me. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, Tulsi supporters
a lot of Tulsi supporters. I'm like,
well, I would say basically every other candidate has vicious supporters, and that's what's so unique about Marianne Williamson. And I think that speaks to her character and how much her message resonates as far as the unity and you know, just her winning with love and not like, and people laugh at that, but I'm like, bro, y'all don't laugh at the idea of like sending a bomb somewhere. Like a bomb goes off and y'all literally will keep a straight face while watching the news. And you see all this hatred around the world. And she says, well, we can't win with hatred. We have to win with love. And y'all like, oh, that's so fucking stupid. I'm like, maybe y'all should listen to her.
No, I agree. And like I said, I think she is someone who is an important voice for our generation. I think she's somebody who, look, if I ran a network, Marianne Williamson would be one of the first people I would run to and say, you need a show.
You watching Marianne Williamson? See, if you watching Marianne Williamson's speech, I encourage anybody and everybody to watch one. You are out your seat. Like, go speak on it. Speak on it. I forgot I was supporting Tulsi one time a week ago. I was like, damn, this girl going in right now. Like, I don't know if I want her to run the country. I feel like she just hasn't had enough experience. And I'm not saying that you need experience exclusively to run the country in politics, but like just from everything she's shown me, I don't think she just has the experience to be a president. A cabinet position, absolutely. But the president, not yet. But I know this though. I know that shit that Warren said about making the war on terror treating like a worldwide issue that's a regime change, or excuse me, that's a war dog whistle. And I would have been interesting to see. That would have been Tulsi's moment. That moment when she said that, she would have not been able to get another word in my opinion. I think that would have been a very important moment. But unfortunately, like I said, Tulsi wasn't allowed in the debates because she keeps ending people's careers every time she's in it. So,
well, I mean, she didn't end Kamala's career.
She dropped. She went from a top tier candidate to, oh shit, Kamala's still in this debate. Okay, let me tell you. You know how you know she's not an establishment favorite anymore? Because if she was, they would have never asked her about her criminal justice record. Because before, it was completely off the table to even address Kamala's record, and then after Tulsi exposed it, and it's been and her polling dropped across the board. There's been article after article about it. Then all of a sudden it's, hey, so you're going to address this finally now? And then Warren, once again, is being uplifted and protected because she's the new favorite.
I think, what happened is, in addition to Tulsi calling it out on the debate stage, it's been called out in the media a whole lot, including by me. But I think on the debate stage, what really made the difference was the fact that this was at TSU. It was at an HBCU where people are concerned about, the foresight that our DAs have and our, state's attorneys have. And, this is the audience was the Black Lives Matter generation. You guys, are the Black Lives. Well, you're a little outside.
Yeah, I was in college I was literally in college when Black Lives Matter started.
Okay, so I mean, you guys are the Black Lives Matter generation, and people want to, hear about that. So I know somebody, they may have logged off, but they were upset that I said something about Dr. Phil when I said put him in the garbage disposal. Let me be clear, wasn't talking about violence. Or
metaphorically,
anything.
People, come on. Don't take it too
and
serious.
certainly, I wouldn't be upset if he weren't on TV anymore. Trust me.
Just saying, I wouldn't be upset if he didn't have the job he currently has. That's all I'm saying.
Right. And look, he's made millions of dollars. I'd be interested to know how many people he's actually helped. You know what I mean?
He made what's her name a millionaire? Bad Barbie a millionaire, bro. What you mean? He helped her.
Oh yeah.
Catch her outside, girl.
Catch me outside, right? How about that? But I'm not so sure that helped her. You know what I mean? Even being a millionaire, I don't even think that helped her. Whatever psych issues or whatever she was.
No, not literally. It probably made it worse, honestly. Yeah. But if we're being real, but as far as Kamala is concerned, I think that we can learn a lot from how they frame questions in debates. I love what V tweeted out the first time Tulsi debated with the MSNBC debates here in Miami. But she was like, we know who the establishment wants or who MSNBC wants to win, and it's Warren. Because especially if you were in the room, it was blatantly obvious.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were literally, you want Medicare for all, you want to you got legislation to get corruption out of Washington and and like they were literally teeing her up. And then they didn't ask her any foreign policy questions whatsoever. And that's actually been consistent. And then, of course, tonight we found out why, because she's not good at it. She didn't sound like she knew what she was talking about. But to her credit, she sounded not that bad. She wanted to pull out Afghanistan, but then she was like, but we have to. She just kind of, okay, she did the Warren Ward salad that she definitely does more often than she should. But with Kamala, usually it's the same type of protections. What they always protect their establishment candidates' weaknesses with the way they frame the question. And Kamala, she's the Hamptons chosen one. She was. And after that, after her polling has consistently dropped across the board, and then she's in a couple of early primary states, she's within less than a point of Tulsi now. Whereas Tulsi has jumped up, like in the Emerson poll, 6% in New Hampshire, 5-6% in Iowa. And so you can't, and when you drop that far in the black vote, like she dropped, right, you can, as a black person in general, you cannot win a Democratic primary. People forget Obama won 90%.
I've been telling Tulsi from day one, you can't win a Democratic primary at all without black votes. And I think that she, I will tell you right now, as far as not even Tulsi, but, one of Tulsi's strengths, and this is what I think is not being reflected in the polling, is that in open primary states, Tulsi would kill it.
Yeah,
she would do really well because there are some right-wing people who really like her military background. They like the fact that she's anti-intervention, and they will. I know people who
independents, like dominantly independent people in those open primary states, like 40-50% of the voting population. Who are just, some people just are disenchanted with the Democratic Party, especially after what happened last election.
Yeah, I think, but even I think she'd convert a lot of Trump voters.
Oh yeah, I always say she's the only one.
That's why I'm saying I don't like all of her supporters. You know what I mean? Because I hear these people like,
oh yeah,
don't talk about racism.
They're right wing Bernie. Or there used to be, not as much anymore though. There were a lot of conservative Bernie supporters in 2016.
Yeah, I mean, because it's populism, but at the same time, I've heard, whenever you go on one of Tulsi's threads, it's like, Tulsi, just don't say anything about racism. It's like, and in some cases, the way Tulsi,
I don't feel like that's unique to her though. I feel like all the progressive candidates, and the reason why is because they know that if you're a progressive and you want to win the open primary states, if you talk about racism, it has to be a very, like I said, it has to be very policy based, very substantive. Don't just speak in a generality. Right. Don't just use it to attack Trump without saying what you're going to do about those issues.
But Bernie does that. That's
I agree with you. And it's actually been hurting him amongst the independents. That's the problem. He's been falling in New Hampshire because of it. And Tulsi has been rising simultaneously because if she does speak about race, it's always in a constructive and productive way rather than just using it to attack Trump. Like, he's racist. Like, okay, we get it. So what are you going to do about it? What does race mean to you as far as solutions are concerned? And I'm sure you agree. We want all the candidates in general, if they're going to talk about Black issues. Did you hear any Black solutions tonight? Speaking of which, by the way.
So specifically Black solutions.
I heard they didn't ask Bernie the reparations conversation. A little disappointed in that. He dodged a bullet. He dodged a bullet there. Yeah. But other than that.
Yeah, no, it was all about what the problems exist and acknowledging them. Mm-hmm. I think Castro pointed to some of his plans, but didn't say what they were, which is fine. I mean, you don't have time to break down everything in 45 seconds.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's what I think Biden's weakness is. He's trying to keep all these numbers in his head, you know what I mean? And spit them out really quickly. It's like, we spent $645 billion on border security.
Just say we spent too much, bro. Just say we spent too much.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Stop trying to remember every number you ever did in your 45-year congressional career. And I think that's what's really hurting him and why he sounds confused a lot of time and he's not coherent. He's trying to remember too much. And now,
like, bro, campaigning, just as a journalist keeping up with the campaigns, it's hard to remember everything.
Right.
Imagine being the person speaking 5, 6, 7 times a day to 5, 6, 7 different crowds. Like, bro, it's exhausting. I get it. Whenever I'm like in LA or if I'm following Tulsi around for whatever reason that day doing media stuff, I get exhausted following them around.
Right.
So there's no reason it's not saying it's not important to know numbers. But you want to kind of keep it very specific to what your strengths are so you can always go back to it. And it needs to be a repetitious thing. Like Bernie with his numbers, it's the same ones over and over and over and over again. It's smooth when he says it. With Biden, it's like he tries to sound smarter and more educated on a particular issue than he actually is. And he just learned a number and he doesn't even apply it correctly. Now, once again, to his credit, the Medicare for All thing, when he was trying to attack Bernie on it, he did a pretty decent job doing so, to the point where I was like, damn it, Bernie, don't let him get you on this. And they pivoted to Warren instead. Once again, don't understand why. I do not understand why they did that. Warren was so entitled, by the way, as a just brief aside, when they went to go ask Gang a question, did she say, did I hear correct? She said, why didn't you ask me that?
I didn't hear that.
About immigration? I feel like she apologized and said, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I do remember her saying, I'm sorry. I didn't hear her saying, why didn't you ask me that?
Yeah, I think that's what she's kind of like. I was like, what the fuck?
What did you think? What did you think of Jorge Ramos tonight and the way he went at, Biden? I felt like he held Biden's feet to the fire more than he did other candidates. And that was the thing that I thought was a little unfair.
He did hold Biden's feet to the fire more than other candidates, which is weird, honestly. I feel like it was kind of weird. Like, I don't understand why. I don't know his background. I do not like the way he went at Bernie, though. I don't like the underhanded tactic that he used. You didn't ask, so you asked Bernie about Venezuela because you tried to loosely associate, quote unquote, socialism or the caricature of socialism that the right wing talking heads have created, and Bernie. And then they talked about the issue wrong 100%. And then the only other person you ask about a situation is a Latino on stage. Right. That wasn't, you don't frame it and don't try to tee it up. It's like, okay, what do you think about Venezuela in regards to, and frame it around what's actually happening today? Trump tried to set up a coup in Venezuela. Would you have handled that situation differently? What do you think about the current situation there? That would have been the correct way to answer that question. Instead, it's an attempt to manufacture consent for a regime change war for whoever the next president is. Oh, don't you think Maduro's a dictator? Don't you think he is? Because that's what socialism is. It just puts up dictators. And it's like,
right,
bruh, that's not how you ask that question. And I agree with you. He was generally fair in every other circumstance, except for when he was kind of going weirdly hard on Biden, like he had a personal vendetta against him. And then that one question to Bernie, like he was trying to hurt him by framing it, because there was almost no way he can come out of it. Don't get it twisted. I was very disappointed.
The framing sounded oddly Trump-like.
Exactly.
Which right wing, which frustrated me about Jorge Ramos. The way he went at Bernie about that, comparing what Bernie is saying. And I will say that Bernie calling himself a democratic socialist is wrong. He believes in social democracy.
Democrat. Yeah.
Those are two different things. Social democracy and democratic socialism are two different things. And I think he's more along the lines, at least at this point in his career, with believing in social democracy.
That's all about. He used to be a democratic socialist.
No, I believe that. At one point he was, but at this point, he believes in social democracy.
Which isn't bad. It isn't bad, but
yeah, no, definitely. And
himself up to failure sometimes. But plus, I do think it's important to say that, like, so here's the issue that I take with the Venezuela conversation that was had tonight. And many of my supporters and followers know how I feel about this conversation. As much as I love Bernie, his foreign policy scares the hell out of me. It really does. And that's one of the reasons that I kind of felt forced to pick Tulsi over Bernie as far as my personal endorsement, because like she's as good as Bernie on domestic policy, but she actually understands foreign policy. And it's like 50% of the damn job, right? If you go to apply for a job and it's 50% of the job, you're like, man, I don't know how to do this part, but I can do this stuff. And then you're not going to get a call back, right? So I feel like that's just common sense. But also, people forget FDR was great on domestic policy, But he also, because of his ignorance and naivety on foreign policy, allowed our corporations to create Nazi subsidiaries and ultimately fund Nazism that led us into World War II. And then, funny enough, we bombed those subsidiaries, and then those companies, GM, Ford, and a couple of others, actually sued us and won for us bombing their Nazi subsidiaries in Germany. And so, because FDR wasn't privy to how the intelligence community will manipulate you, pressure you, and basically force you into situations in advance, it led to the Holocaust. Like, right. And it's not an exaggeration. People think it is literally not an exaggeration that our complicity in our corporations and military industrial complex literally led to the Holocaust and led to World War II. And so when Bernie had the opportunity tonight to say, look, feel how you want to feel about Maduro, but Venezuela actually has the most secure election systems in the world. And that was decided by Jimmy Carter himself and the Carter Institute. Right. If we want to keep it a ban, Julian Castro just tried to commit a damn military coup and he is still alive. Right, if Maduro is a tyrant, as we traditionally think of a tyrant, he is literally the worst tyrant in the history of all tyrants. He's not good at that job. So, like, you don't have to praise Maduro, right, in order to just keep it real and say, we don't need to be a part of Venezuela. If they don't believe their elections are fair, then it's up to the Venezuelan people to determine how they should move forward and move the fuck on.
Right. That's it. And I think that's what he basically said. And he
called him a tyrant and said that people got abducted and got killed.
Yeah. To be honest, when it comes to whether Maduro is a dictator or a tyrant, I can't really answer that, to be honest with you. I think maybe you have more information than I do.
Yeah, I do way too. I studied South America way too much. So
I've studied South America,
but you know what the thing is? It's irrelevant. That's what I think is the important part. It's not our job. How many people believe that Donald Trump stole the election? Like, some people believe, some people don't, but a lot of people do. Did any other country try and say that they need to step in for our democracy because some people believe that Donald Trump stole our election? No. Because it's irrelevant. Right. If we want to change the structure, then it's up to us to do so. And if somebody else try to come in and do it, then both sides would join together, look at that person and be like, you done lost your damn mind coming in here trying to fix my democracy.
No, I agree. For the most part, I'm anti-intervention. Not saying, now that's not 100% for me, but I think for the most part, I think, I'm against intervention. One thing I will say, getting back to Jorge Ramos and Biden, that was troubling to me was, and like you said, let's keep it a ban. The difference between the Obama administration, people saying he's the deporter in chief, the protesters that show up, he did deport a lot of people. There was one issue.
Is that what that was?
I'm assuming, I don't know. That's what they were in the past. But there's a couple of things that I think we need to iron out about immigration that Jorge Ramos got wrong. He made it a Latino issue.
He did.
The 7% of undocumented people in this country are non-Latino Black people.
Yes, the Haitians down here don't get the type of love and devotion to that issue.
And they are 20% of the people that end up in deportation proceedings. Mm-hmm. So again,
I did not know that.
Yes,
the black Latinos and the Black immigrants they're the ones that's gonna get. Where's your green card? That they're gonna get pulled over.
It's again, no one should be surprised. Black people getting the short end of the stick. And the thing was, Jorge Ramos pretty much erased them by making it a Latino issue. Mm. The other thing that I would say is, it is true that Obama deported a whole lot of abuelitas and a whole lot of, tios and tias and hard workers and construction workers, people who are paying taxes. That is very true. But when you compare him to the Trump administration, the majority of the people he was deporting were people with criminal backgrounds. Now, we can debate what criminal background means, whether it was a serious crime, whether it was.
The majority of people that Obama deported?
Yes.
Oh, no. That was a main problem. So Bernie actually called Obama out on this because he was separating families before Trump was. Bernie called him out in 2016. It wasn't mainly criminal. That's what people were saying, but people didn't know that violent crimes and crime overall actually went down with undocumented immigration surge, which is weird. Or it's not weird because if you're here and you had to risk it all to get here, you know that one mistake can send you back. You're much less likely to commit a crime. And the Dreamers Act was put in place to distract from the fact that he was the quote unquote deporter in chief, because he was trying to once again appease both sides. He didn't want to be, considered nice to the immigrants just because he was a person of color too and all that nonsense. That's Obama's biggest problem. He's always wanted to do that. I want to appease both sides instead of using that mandate that he had.
We will agree 100% on that. But I know for a fact that there's been a shift in the amount of people with criminal backgrounds since the people Obama was deporting.
I believe that, yeah.
The people since Trump. And I'm going to fact check. Whoa, sorry about that. Anybody, the 5 people watching? I'm going to fact check the other thing, while we keep talking, about Obama deporting primarily people with.
But I think that I do have to give him credit for even mentioning the fact that Obama did participate a lot in, what some people would say illegitimate deportation. But here's what I want to say before while we're talking about the immigration conversation, once again, and we're at this weird crossroad that I think that every time I'm like, okay, so is this going to be the night? And nobody will say it. And they didn't ask Bernie, in all fairness, because I know what his answer would have been because he said it before. No one brought up comprehensive immigration reform.
But that's another thing though. People talk about comprehensive immigration reform, but never say exactly what that means.
There is an so comprehensive immigration reform would start with stop meddling in other people's countries. That's one. 2, you create a legitimate path to citizenship. Right now, it's obviously like case-by-case basis. And let's be honest, it's kind of favored towards white people. If you come to Miami, I joke all the time that I did not know that there were Black and Mestizo Venezuelans because I had never met one before.
Really?
I live in Miami. I literally had never seen one. They're mostly white, blonde hair, blue eyes. And if they're not like blonde hair, blue eyes, they're brown hair, but they're still white. So I did not know there were straight up Black Venezuelans. I never knew that until maybe a couple of years ago. So refugee status is oftentimes used and granted to cover up for the United States mistakes, which usually involves having people who benefited from right-wing tyrannical governments to come here so that they don't tell the world or face the consequence for what we were doing, but also so they keep quiet about what we were doing. So that's all. So we got, once stop meddling in those type of situations too, we have to create a fair process. Whatever that process is, it doesn't mean let everybody in. It doesn't mean let nobody in. It means stop with the gray and make it so there's a clear path to citizenship. Make it less expensive. I'll have a whole list of things that we need to do for comprehensive immigration reform.
I think you have a list, but I think it becomes a buzzword oftentimes in the media. We need comprehensive immigration reform. And then it's like, so what does that mean?
I think there's only two or three people who talk about that. And that's mostly Bernie and Marianne Williamson too. She did a great job last debate talking about that.
Right. Yeah.
What I can't stand is let's decriminalize. And then they say, well, what does that mean? Because when they finally do they say it means make it a civil case. Well, in Jason, being a Black man, I'm sure you've had a lot of people caught up with civil cases. Did civil cases stop your ass from going to jail if you're broke and no money?
Right.
Well, do Black people still get separated from their families because of civil cases? They still lose their jobs for civil cases? And would a civil case completely stop deportation under the current circumstances? No, it would not. So when they say decriminalize, it wouldn't be a misdemeanor. It wouldn't be a felony, but that would not stop you from getting deported. It would not stop you from landing in jail. And it does not necessarily mean, especially if it's going to be a state to state, case by case basis, it does not necessarily mean that you will not end up in jail over the case, because they can still give you the max punishment. You fuck around, get a racist judge. Super Friday, thanks for the super chat. Oh, damn, that's a man. We're slipping, Jason. I want this to be a last topic. I gotta head out soon, but the gun conversation.
Oh yeah.
What do you think about it? Like, I was not at all comfortable with the everybody sell their AR-15s to the government. Now we're talking about banning AR-15, different conversation. Put them in a fucking fire and melt them all. But I ain't about to sell all of our AR-15s to the government. I'm really not about that.
I'm not about that. I'm not so this is my one conservative area is a little more, I'm a little more conservative on guns. I am for, background checks. Obviously, 90% of Americans are. I think we have to do them the right way, but I think we can have, universal background checks. Red flags, I'm not really sold on that yet.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that I am, limiting the capacity of a magazine makes perfect sense.
That makes perfect sense. Perfect.
You know what I mean? Anybody who looks at, what, for example, happened in Gilroy, California, where the guy had a 75-round drum connected to his weapon. He could literally fire off, the 16 rounds in his clip and then 75 more rounds after that. That's ridiculous. We shouldn't have that capability. That's not for personal protection.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in terms of gun control, that's good. But I'm also a believer that, something that, what's his face? What's the guy's name? Beto. One of the things that Beto said, sorry for anybody who's watching, because I'm trying to read this article on, criminal deportations and all that at the same time I'm talking. But one of the things that Beto said was we need to, in turn, that the AR-15 is a gun that's only meant to kill people. And I'm like, that's most guns, but whatever. And he was like, you can be, torn apart with an AR-15, that's meant to leave people dead on a battlefield.
I mean, so are pistols. Every gun is literally meant to leave people dead on the battlefield. If it was not, I would be a little worried.
Right. I mean, if you look, for example, at a shotgun and what a shotgun will do to you, I'd probably rather get shot with an AR than with a shotgun.
And you know what's funny? The Geneva Convention prevents you from using shotguns in a war zone, but yet everybody, if you find one hunter or most people, like shotguns in the house are perfectly, you don't think twice about it. They're sold in fucking Walmart. But
if you have a 12 gauge shotgun with buckshot, you know what that'll do to your body. Like, you will have a hole in your body this big because, the slug from a shotgun is this big and, it's like gonna.
Gun reform is interesting to me. The conversation for gun reform is interesting because it's such a difficult topic. And I do believe that gun reform gets politicized. First of all, I don't feel like we should have to have debate about background checks, bruh. I got to have a background check before I get a job. You better damn sure have a background check before you get a damn gun. One. For one. Two, as a Black man, I do sincerely I'm with the Black Panthers on this. I cherish my Second Amendment rights. In fact, I feel like Second Amendment rights have not been uplifted and upheld enough. It's supposed to be within a well-regulated militia as well, to fight back against a tyrannical government, whether it be foreign or domestic. And we all know how if you lived in Ferguson or if you saw what happened in Ferguson, that is exactly why the Black Panthers preached what they preached back in the day. And that's why they were targeted. So, but once again, people forget that the people who end up committing these atrocities oftentimes subvert all of those things that were just background checks. They get it from their next door neighbor. They get it from, the father. They get it, it's sad. And I feel like there is a different type of issue that we need to discuss. And I don't like it being just chalked up to mental health. But it's almost like, and I know we just talked about, comprehensive reform being a gaslighting term for immigration, but with gun reform, I do just sincerely believe that it's more than about guns. There's this deep ugliness in our nation right now that we're not addressing. And it's being used on both sides to weaponize us against each other. Now, I don't think it's a coincidence, once again, that as we've kind of seen this coming to light, that at the end of the day, white men have done a lot to contribute to a lot of the problems in this country. It's not all white guys, we already know, but like, as we're starting to see that come into light and you start to see that privilege that was enjoyed kind of dissipating a bit, or at least it being coming into question, all of a sudden you see this huge hike in mass shootings, and it's 99% white guys.
Right. Yeah, no,
so
definitely.
Why we got to ask, why is that? Like, if you ask somebody, a white person want to be a smart ass, and there's probably that one guy out there, what about the black on black crimes in Chicago? I can give you a detailed explanation as to why exactly it is black on black crime. And I can also explain to you why most crimes are color on color. Yeah, first of all, absolutely. You kill who you know.
Yeah, look at our communities. We're residentially segregated.
Yep. And it's for gun problem to be such a problem, gun violence to be such a problem in black communities, how many mass shootings have we seen from black people? And why is it that it's such a we have such a problem with guns in our community, but it never translates to mass shootings on that type of a scale?
Yeah, I mean,
so what is it? Like, why is it that particular demographic? So I think like there's just something deep and ugly in this country.
So let me just say one thing about guns, and that is, first of all, people talk about, well, these cities have really strict gun control laws and they have a lot of violence. If you look at the states that have the highest number of gun violence, and I'll tell everybody here, the two people who are watching me here, because I kept dropping in and doing all kinds of stuff. But if you look, Alaska, Mississippi, Louisiana, Oklahoma, those are the states. Those are 4 of the 5 states that have the largest, amount of gun violence and gun deaths. Really? All of them are Republican, by the way.
Did not know that. I did not know that.
And they all have lax gun control laws.
But what about Chicago, Jason? What about Chicago?
Well, the guns from Chicago, it's already been proven 60% of the guns in Chicago come in from Indiana. If you've ever been to Chicago, Indiana is about a 20-minute drive from Chicago.
Across the street. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And no one ever talks about, because it's a smaller city, no one talks about the gun violence in Gary, Indiana, which is a tiny little town, but it has, in terms of the levels of gun violence, very similar to Chicago.
More drugs, more opiates.
Oh, definitely. And Indianapolis the same way.
So do you think that is part of it then? So, because now the gun violence conversation, and one thing that pisses me off about Cory Booker is how he talks about it. He makes it seem like it's a black issue, right? And it's not. It's not a black issue. Right. It's a countrywide issue, non-unique to the black community. We talk about, when black people talk about the black on black violence, it's because we care about it, because it's affecting and afflicting people who look like us and maybe, we may know or associated with, even if tangentially. But like, it's not black on black crime is as much of an issue as white on white crime is.
Right. Absolutely.
I lived in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, y'all. Not a single black shooting happened when I was there. And you know why? Because all the black people there got a lot of money and they ain't got time for that. And if they ain't got money, they got potential and they got a great education. They ain't about to go out and start shooting people. We got to deal with the systemic issues that, like, if I can go to a place like Chapel Hill, one of the most prosperous areas in the nation, why are the black people there not killing each other? And why are the white people there not killing each other? But if I go to Gary, Indiana, it's not the same. If I go to Southside Chicago, it's not the same. We got to address that.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at it, everyone talks about Chicago. In terms of, cities with most of the violence, one of them, one of the most violent cities in America, I'm about 20 minutes from, and that's Baltimore City. One of the most violent cities in America. And again, like you said, we need to address the systemic issues. This isn't even about elected officials, to be honest with you. These are old institutionalized problems that, you can have the most energetic politician, I don't care if he's Democrat or Republican, he's not going to solve generations old issues, particularly when he doesn't have the resources. It's literally like, you want to talk about battlefields. It's literally putting somebody, on a battlefield in Afghanistan or Kashmir with a pocket knife. They're not gonna, they're not gonna last long. They're gonna get shot.
It's up to the people. Not saying the politicians can't help or mitigate or encourage the people, but like that, in my opinion, should be more so the message that one politician cannot fix this problem.
Right.
And we have to start addressing the institutions in the system that perpetuates this type of violent behavior. So I don't want to run too much longer. So you have a wrap up.
So I do want to say really quickly, I looked up, this thing about criminal removals with Obama. It basically says that they broke things down into 3 priorities. It was priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. The top priority for removal were national security threats, non-citizens apprehended immediately at the border, gang members and non-citizens convicted of felonies or aggravated felonies as defined in immigration law. Priority 2, non-citizens convicted of 3 or more misdemeanors or a serious misdemeanor, those who entered or re-entered the United States unlawfully after January 1st, 2014, and those who have significantly abused visa or visa waiver programs. And priority 3, non-citizens subject to a final order of removal issued on or after January 1st, 2014.
Okay.
It shows you some of the numbers here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but a large portion of the people that they removed were priority 1 or priority 2. Also a lot priority 3. Hold on, let me just see here. So 2009, 69% of the people they removed were priority 1, were first priority. So national security threats, gang members, non-citizens with felonies, aggravated felonies, etc. And then about 20% were not a priority. So you did have a large portion of people, like I said, abuelas, tios, and others who were being removed.
See, but here's what scares me about the priority 1, though. ICE was still here, right? And we don't trust these institutions under Trump. These people didn't just get jobs in ICE 2 years ago. Right? So like, and if you are poor, non-English speaking, what's the odds you can get a good lawyer to actually defend yourself? What if you got caught up in some bullshit and you weren't guilty? How many Black people have been caught up in the system? We just don't get deported. We just stay in the prison. But
no, I agree 100%. Now,
but I do agree with you. Like, I feel like Trump has kind of literally encouraged it with federal funding because they're specific, like you just said, it isn't just Latinos being deported, and it's damn sure not just Latinos, immigrating or migrating unlawfully. So why is it the only time we have this conversation, it's about Latinos at the border?
Right. No, I agree. And, again, priority 1 in 2013, 87%. So I think that the Obama administration wanted to, and not a priority was 6%. So I think they really did want to get rid of people who they viewed as a real threat. And 3 misdemeanors, it's like, come on, dog, like get your stuff together.
Yeah.
I think that they really did want that. But obviously,
3 misdemeanors could be you got caught driving without your license twice.
Yeah, or drinking, with an open container of alcohol outside.
Yeah, misdemeanor, it can be a money problem.
Right. No, I agree with you 100%.
But I do agree with you though that Trump administration is this thing with immigration, bro. The ICE agents, bro, you can get pulled over, and if you ever driven through Georgia, oh, bro, the police are the ICE. And these small towns are getting federal funding. That's what's keeping them alive. So what are they going to do?
Right.
And they're going to pull people over to see if you're an immigrant. And then on top of that, they already have their own inherent racial biases. I got pulled over in Georgia one time. Went to court to take care of the ticket. When I tell you about 700 names got read, Jason.
Wow.
About 80% of them were Latino. In a town that is 90% white, 80% of them were Latino. The courtroom had 2 white people in it.
Wow.
2. I bullshit. I could not believe it. I was looking around, like, and then it turns out this particular jurisdiction is under federal investigation. So, like, that's what bothers me about, not just because it wasn't just Trump, it wasn't just Obama. It's our system. It's because it's a for-profit. Now it's a for-profit immigration system.
Right. Absolutely.
So it's a whole different conversation for a different day. But yeah. I appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you so much. We'll definitely have you on again soon. Let me know when you want me to come on. Go follow Jason on Twitter. It was at Jason Nichols, right?
No, it's at Real Doc Seuss, RealDocSoos. If you are up early in the morning, which I don't know why you would be, if you're up at 5:30, I'll be on Fox and Friends First tomorrow talking about these very same issues, but not as astute and with a host who is probably not as good, of course, as Niko House. I love being on with you, bro. Of course, you're my brother. And definitely let's keep this going. Let's keep
make sure y'all check out when Tucker Carlson for Jason too, because he's on there often a lot.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. I think I'll be on there next week. So I think Wednesday is when I'm probably gonna be on there. So check it out.
Okay. So check them out there on Wednesday. Other than that, always remember more than anything else, people, find your balance.